She was just trying to get to work. Her uniform was clean but faded. Her shoes were worn and the morning air was cold. She walked quickly, head down, staying close to the sidewalk. Then it happened. A white SUV sped through a puddle, and in an instant, muddy water exploded all over her. Her face, her clothes, her bag, drenched, humiliated. The car didn't stop. The tinted window rolled down slightly. A woman inside, elegant, rich, and amused, laughed out loud. "Watch where you walk, sweetheart," she said mockingly, before speeding off. Emma stood still. Her lips trembled. Her eyes burned. But she didn't cry. She picked up her muddy bag and kept walking. Across the street, someone had seen everything. Inside a quiet black car sat David Bennett, young, wealthy, and calm. He watched the splash. He saw the woman's laughter, and he saw the pain on Emma's face. He recognized the driver, Vanessa Hill, a fashion influencer and daughter of a powerful man, known for her beauty and her arrogance. But what she didn't know was that someone who despised injustice had just seen it all. David pulled out his phone and said, "Find out who she is. I want to know everything." That day, Emma arrived at work, soaked, shoes squishing, head down. Her manager frowned. "Emma, you're late. And what happened to you?" "A car splashed me. No excuses," he snapped. "Get changed. The lobby better shine." She didn't argue. She didn't complain. She just nodded and walked to the supply room. No one helped her. No one said a word. She changed into an old spare uniform and got to work. But inside, she was shattered. Still, she kept moving. Later that afternoon, in a sleek downtown office, David opened the file his assistant had just handed him. "Her name's Emma Carter, 24, cleans 2 job sites, lives in South Side, raising her little sister alone. Mom passed away 2 years ago." He stared at the photo, Emma smiling next to a little girl. He touched the image. "She didn't deserve that," he whispered. "Should we do something?" his assistant asked. David looked up. "Yes, but not yet. Let's wait and watch." In her luxury apartment downtown, Vanessa Hill admired herself in the mirror. She adjusted her golden necklace, sipped a green smoothie, and scrolled through messages from fans and brand partners. "That girl was too close to the road anyway," she said to her assistant. "She should be glad I didn't run her over." Back at the Oak Ridge Grand Hotel, Emma worked non-stop. Every corner, every floor. Her back ached, but she kept moving. She whispered simple prayers as she cleaned. "Just get through today." At lunch, she sat alone outside, eating dry toast and sipping water from a plastic bottle. Her hands trembled slightly, but she stayed quiet. Not far away, David stood nearby, wearing a cap and sunglasses. From a distance, he watched her. There was nothing glamorous about her. But the way she moved, the way she carried herself despite everything, reminded him of someone. His mother. A housekeeper. A widow. A woman who had raised him without ever complaining. David turned away. But in his mind, a plan had already begun. The next morning, Emma arrived for work as usual. But something strange happened. Inside her locker, she found a small paper bag. Inside, a pair of new gloves, a warm breakfast sandwich, and a note. "For the woman who keeps going, even when the world tries to stop her." Emma looked around. No one claimed it. No one watched her. But her heart warmed. She hadn't felt that in a long time. Across town, David sat in front of a screen, watching through a secure hotel feed. He saw her smile, just for a moment. He nodded quietly, step by step. That afternoon, David made a call. "I want her reassigned," he told the hotel director, "to the VIP floor, quietly." "But sir, she's just a cleaner." "She's not just anything," David replied. The next day, Emma was sweeping the hotel lobby when her supervisor walked up to her. "Emma Carter?" he asked, tablet in hand. "Yes?" "You're being moved to the VIP floor, starting tomorrow." She blinked, stunned. "Me? But I didn't apply." "It's been approved, better pay, lighter work. Congratulations," He walked away without explanation. Emma stood still, confused but quietly hopeful. That evening, she told Lily, her little sister. "See?" Lily smiled. "Good things can still happen." But not everyone was happy. Some co-workers whispered, "She must know someone upstairs. There's no way she earned that on her own." Emma heard them all, but she stayed silent. Meanwhile, David kept visiting the hotel, always discreet, watching Emma from afar, her grace, her discipline, the way she smiled at guests who didn't even look at her. One day, a new note appeared in her locker. "Keep shining. Some people do notice." That same week, Emma stepped into the VIP hallway for the first time. The carpets were soft. The scent of flowers filled the air. She worked carefully, silently, and someone watched. David, seated in a corner chair in plain clothes, sunglasses, a folded newspaper in hand. After a while, he stood and approached her. "Excuse me," he said kindly. "Could you show me the Sky Lounge?" Emma smiled. "Of course, sir. This way." As they walked, he asked gently, "How long have you worked here?" "Almost 2 years," she answered. "It's tough, but I'm grateful." He nodded. "Do you enjoy it?" She hesitated. "No one dreams of mopping floors, but I do my best, every day." He stopped walking and looked at her. "You do more than that. You bring light here." Emma gave a small, shy smile. "Thank you. I try." He didn't say who he was, just watched her walk away. But something in him had already changed. That night, Vanessa Hill was having dinner at an upscale restaurant with her father, a powerful businessman who had built a fortune in real estate. She looked flawless as always, but her eyes were restless. "Someone is targeting me," she said sharply. "First a photo, now online rumors. They're trying to ruin me." Her father sipped his wine calmly. "Or maybe," he replied, "someone is just holding up a mirror." Vanessa stiffened. "I haven't done anything wrong." But deep down, she knew better. The next morning, back at the hotel, Emma found a bouquet in her locker. No name, no message, just fresh flowers. She stared at them for a long time, quietly moved. Someone was watching her journey, not to harm her, but to lift her. Her hard work hadn't gone unnoticed, but jealousy grew. One of the senior cleaners, a woman named Tracy, couldn't stand Emma's rise. "She's acting like a saint now, but who knows what she's done to get that spot," she whispered to others. Emma ignored it. She stayed focused. Then one morning, everything changed. A guest slipped and fell in the hotel's marble lobby. The director came storming out. "Who cleaned this area last?" Everyone turned to Emma. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, her voice shaking. "I followed all protocols." No one listened, except David. He immediately requested the security footage. What they saw shocked everyone. Tracy had tampered with the cleaning supplies. Emma was cleared of all blame. The director apologized. "I'm sorry, Emma. You're innocent." She walked out of the office in tears, not from pain, but from relief. Someone had finally stood up for her. That same day, Vanessa Hill scrolled through her social media feed. Suddenly, she froze. A blurry photo showed her white SUV splashing muddy water on a woman. The caption read, "Some people think money erases basic respect." The post was going viral. Her face wasn't clearly shown, but people were connecting the dots. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. Her assistant hesitated. Maybe you should apologize," Vanessa scoffed. "To a cleaner? I don't even remember her face." But something inside her cracked. For the first time, her perfect image felt fragile. At the hotel, Emma's name was cleared. Supervisors greeted her politely. Even some co-workers who used to whisper now smiled faintly. Tracy, the one who set her up, was suspended. Emma didn't seek revenge, but she kept her distance. That afternoon, David returned. This time, no disguise. He found Emma arranging flowers in the lobby. "You again?" she said with a half smile. "You really like this hotel." "I like watching good things grow," he replied. She tilted her head. You're not just a guest, are you? He smiled. David Bennett, owner of Bennett Real Estate Group, one of the hotel's investors. Emma froze. You're the David Bennett? Just David, he said gently. And I've been watching since that day. The SUV, the mud, and the way you kept walking. Her smile faded a little. You didn't deserve that. And I haven't forgotten, he said. Emma didn't know what to say. Then he added, You don't need to say anything, just know that I see you. That night, Emma walked home with something new in her heart. Not fear, not shame, hope. Someone had seen her, truly seen her, not as a worker, not as a poor girl, but as a woman who mattered, and that changed everything. The next morning, Emma walked to the bus stop like every other day. Same streets, same shoes, but her heart felt lighter. Then, a white SUV slowed beside her. Vanessa Hill. She rolled down the window, her smile tight and cold. You're Emma, right? Emma nodded cautiously. You're making quite a splash, Vanessa said with a smirk. Now people see me as the villain. Emma frowned. I didn't ask for any of this. Exactly, Vanessa snapped. You did nothing, and look at what you're getting. Playing the victim works well, huh? Emma stared back. I never played anything. I just kept going. Vanessa laughed dryly and drove off. Emma stood there, a little shaken, but unbroken. Later that day, during her break, David was waiting for her at the hotel cafe. On the table, a beige folder. What's this? Emma asked, sitting down. A scholarship, he said. Full tuition for a hospitality management program. Starts next month. You can keep working part-time if you'd like. Emma's hands trembled. Why me? David smiled. Because you never asked for anything. But you deserve everything. Tears filled her eyes. She had no words, but her heart was full. That evening, Emma climbed to the rooftop garden of the Oak Ridge Grand Hotel. In her hands, the scholarship letter. Below, the city lights sparkled. But it was her heart that shined the most. She thought of her mother, of every silent night she cried, of every morning she got up, even when everything hurt. All of it had led to this. A few minutes later, David joined her, holding 2 cups of hot cocoa. You're quiet, he said, offering one. I'm just overwhelmed, she whispered. Is this really happening? He nodded. You earned every piece of it, Emma. She looked at him, eyes shining. People like you usually don't notice people like me. He smiled gently. That used to be true. But when I saw you, I saw my mother. She cleaned houses, raised me alone, never asked for help. Emma was silent. You never talk about that? She asked softly. People like to think I built myself. But the truth is, women like you build the world. No one just sees it. The next day, during the hotel staff meeting, management made an official announcement. Emma Carter had been awarded a scholarship. Applause broke out. Even those who once doubted her stood a little straighter. She hadn't just earned an opportunity. She had earned respect, but not everyone celebrated. Across town, Vanessa stormed into her father's office. Why is everyone talking about her? She's just a cleaner. Her father looked up slowly. David gives her a scholarship. He invites her out. He looks at her like she matters. He paused. Because she does. Then, with a sharp tone, and maybe it's time you learn what truly matters in life. Vanessa was speechless. For the first time, she had no comeback. That evening, David walked Emma home. No drivers, no bodyguards, just the 2 of them, side by side under the soft streetlights. When they reached her building, a small voice called out, Emma! I heard you laughing! It was Lily, running toward her big sister with open arms. She looked at David. Is he your friend? She asked, curious. David knelt down and smiled. Hi, Lily. I've heard so much about you. Emma pulled her sister close. She's my whole world. David watched them quietly. 2 sisters, alone, strong, still standing. A few minutes later, Lily went back inside. Emma walked David to the gate. They stood there under a flickering old lamp. David looked at her. All of this started with mud, but maybe it ends with something beautiful. Emma's voice trembled. Maybe this is just the beginning. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, but something had been said, and it was real. Emma's story didn't stay in the shadows for long. A local blog shared her journey under the headline, "From Mud to Grace, the cleaner who inspired a billionaire." The post spread like wildfire. People commented, "This is what true strength looks like. She deserves the world." Finally, a real-life Cinderella story. Emma was stunned. She never asked for fame. All she ever wanted was a chance. At the hotel, she walked with a little more confidence. Her steps were still quiet, but steady. In the evenings, she attended hospitality classes. Her professors were amazed by her dedication and focus. And David? He still came by, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just to say hello, always respectful, always watching from a distance. But everyone could see it. He was falling in love, and Vanessa Hill couldn't stand it. Driven by pride and jealousy, she hired a shady blogger to publish fake rumors. Emma Carter is just using David. It was all planned. The story exploded online. Emma saw it during her lunch break. Her heart sank. The whispers returned. The looks, the doubt. She packed her things and went home early. But this time, David didn't stay silent. The next morning, he held a press conference. Journalists packed the room. Cameras rolled. David stepped up to the mic. Emma Carter is not a gold digger. She's the most honest and hardworking person I've ever met. He looked directly at the crowd. If you believe lies over truth, maybe you should question your own heart. What I see in her is integrity, and that's worth more than any amount of money. Applause broke out. Back in her small apartment, Emma watched the broadcast, hand over her mouth. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Then, a knock at the door. A delivery man handed her a single red rose and a note. Let the world whisper, I'll always speak your truth. David. She wept quietly. She wasn't just seen, she was chosen. Everything felt surreal. The scholarship, the promotion, the respect, the public support from a man like David Bennett. But little by little, Emma began to believe it was real. At school, she excelled. Her professors praised her work ethic and her sharp mind. She asked questions. She proposed ideas. She stood tall. At the hotel, even the director consulted her for advice. She was no longer just a cleaner. She had become a voice, a presence, a symbol. Meanwhile, another world was crumbling. Investigators traced the false article back to Vanessa Hill. Her father exploded with rage. "You didn't just hurt that girl," he shouted. "You've disgraced all of us." He froze her accounts, cut her from the board. "When you learn what respect means, we'll talk." Suddenly, Vanessa was left with nothing. No assistant, no credit cards, no applause, just silence. That evening, David invited Emma to dinner. Not as her boss, not as a sponsor, but as a man in love with a woman who had earned his deepest respect. He picked her up himself, no chauffeur, no press, just a quiet car and the woman who had changed him. They dined on the rooftop of a small bistro. No glitter, no spotlight, just peace. "You changed me, Emma," David said. "You reminded me what really matters." She looked down, embarrassed. "I still don't understand why you chose me." He reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "Because in a world full of noise, your silence spoke the loudest, and I listened." They didn't need more words, just presence, just truth, just heart. After dinner, they walked together, hand in hand, side by side, no rush, no cameras, just two people, finally seen. They stopped at a familiar intersection. David looked around. "Do you know where we are?" Emma paused, then nodded. "This is it. The spot where she splashed me with mud." David looked at her gently. Yes, but look at you now. She gave a soft smile. She threw mud at me, but you planted a seed. He whispered. And now, you're blooming. They stood in silence, holding hands. No words needed. Sometimes love speaks loudest in silence. 1 year later, the Oak Ridge Grand Hotel celebrated its 20th anniversary. The ballroom sparkled, crystal chandeliers, live music. Every elite guest in the city was there. And then, she entered. Emma, in a long, simple sky blue dress. No flashy jewelry, no brand logos. She didn't need them. Her posture, her grace, her quiet strength was more than enough. People turned. Some whispered. Others clapped gently. She wasn't a cleaner tonight. She was the guest of honor. David stood by her side, proud. He hadn't proposed yet, but everyone could see it in his eyes. He already belonged to her. The hotel director took the stage. Tonight we honor someone who reminds us what true dignity looks like. Please welcome Emma Carter. Applause filled the room. Emma stepped up, took a breath, then said, 1 year ago, I was just a girl with worn-out shoes and mud on my clothes. The room fell silent. I was invisible, until one act of cruelty and one act of kindness changed everything. She looked at David. I'm not here by luck. I'm here because I kept walking, because someone believed in me, before I could believe in myself. Then she added, because kindness speaks louder than status. Tears rolled silently in the crowd. Even the hotel staff standing in the back straightened up. Her voice had become their voice. After the gala, Emma turned to David and whispered, can we go back to where it all started? They walked slowly, quietly, through the night. Back to that old street corner, the one with the puddle, the place where her story had begun, in silence, in shame. But this time, the street was different. New pavement, clean, smooth, quiet. Emma slipped off her heels. Barefoot, she stepped forward, onto the fresh asphalt. David looked at her, surprised. What are you doing? She stopped, eyes on the ground. I'm leaving behind the last part of who I was. She closed her eyes. And I'm walking fully into who I've become. Without a word, David took off his shoes too, and joined her. Barefoot, equal, present. They walked together, step by step, not just as a couple, but as a living reminder that even when life throws mud at you, a flower can grow. And sometimes that flower shines so brightly, the whole world stops to watch. And you, if you'd witnessed that moment, if you'd seen her covered in mud that day, what would you have done? How would you have felt? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear your heart. And while you're at it, let us know which country you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. If this story touched you, give it a thumbs up, share it, and most importantly, subscribe to One World Narratives. Because here, every story reveals the soul of humanity. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon for another true story that matters.